5, 6:30. We ready to go? All right. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Jack Currier. I live here in Nashua. We all do. I serve you as the chairman of the Nashua Zoning Board of Adjustment. If you're here for the Board of Aldermen, that's downstairs, starting in a little while. So a few items tonight. Before we get going, if you have a cell phone, I'd ask that you put it in the silent mode or just turn it off so that we don't get interrupted. I appreciate that very much. I'd like to introduce the other members of our board tonight. To my right is member Evstathia Boris, if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. I've worked on the first one, who's new to our board.
Good evening.
And we also have Mr. J.P. Boucher, who is our vice chair. He's also going to be our clerk tonight, because our clerk is not well. And going around the table, we have member Steve Lionel and alternate member Kathy Vitale. To my left is Mr. Carter Falk. He works here in City Hall, and he is the deputy planning manager in the city zoning office. So the reason we're here tonight is because our city has this large, thick book of code, and there's folks here, there's homeowners who are looking for relief from that code. They're looking for relief of it in two forms. One form is in a variance, and the other form we're hearing tonight is in special exceptions. There's a slight difference between those, and I'll briefly go over that. First of all, by the state of New Hampshire law, they have enacted zoning boards of adjustment to act as a court relief valve, you might say, because there's a lot of discussion and interpretation of zoning laws. So that's why we're here. And again, us as volunteer members who are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the Board of Aldermen. And in order for a variance to be granted, there needs to be 3 or more affirmative votes for that variance, and the same for a special exception. So it's likely that all 5 of us will be voting tonight. So again, the minimum bar is that there'll be 3 affirmative votes in favor of the variance or special exception for it to pass. Now, by law, there's 5 criteria that the board needs to hear in order to grant a variance. And I'll briefly tick through that 5 criteria, and again, this is for a variance. Number 1 is that the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. Number 2, the spirit of the ordinance is observed. Number 3 is that substantial justice is done. Number 4 is that the value of surrounding properties are not diminished. And at number 5, literal enforcement of the zoning law of which you're seeking relief would result in an unjust hardship on the landowner. So that's the 5 criteria that zoning boards need to be satisfied in order to affirm a variance request. We're also here tonight to hear some special exceptions. Special exceptions are a little bit different. Special exceptions are requests that are actually approved in this book of zoning, but they only would be approved if they meet, again, 5 criteria, which are a little different. So the 5 criteria, I'll briefly tick through those. 1 is that the use is listed in the table of uses, and I would say that the special exceptions before us tonight, such as accessory in-law dwelling, those are uses that are approved and listed in the table of uses in this big book. Number 2 is that the requested use will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. Number 3, that the requested use will not overload any public water drainage or sewer system. Number 4 is that any special regulations for the use activity need to be testified that they are fulfilled, and special regulations, for example, we'll get into that when we get into the accessory in-law dwellings. And then number 5 is that the character of the neighborhood will not be impaired or the integrity will be compromised. So that's number 5. So again, I just briefly went through the 5 criteria that the board needs to hear for a variance and for a special exception. The order of testimony tonight will be that the applicant will speak first. The applicant has up to 15 minutes to present their points of law. And a couple of things, this meeting is recorded in 3 venues. It's recorded on audio, and it's recorded video, and then there's a written transcript. And because of that important transcript, We need to have one person speaking and only one person speaking at a time, and I'll be directing who will be at the microphone and speaking, and whoever is speaking from the audience will need to speak into the microphone, and I'll also be asking for your name and address, and that's very important because on the written record, you could have some great testimony, but if there's a misspelled name or a wrong address, if something ends up in court, that's the first thing to get thrown out, and it's my job to ensure that the written transcript is good. So the person speaking tonight, the applicant will speak first at the microphone, and they'll have up to 15 minutes to present their case. You don't have to use the full 15 minutes. There's actually a timer here that'll count down. It'll be green for the first 14 minutes, yellow for the minute 14 to 15, and then turn red, and I'll be asking you to stop if you're still testifying at that point. It's likely that the members of the board will have questions perhaps along the way, and that doesn't go against your 15 minutes. After the applicant has spoken, anybody who wants to speak in favor of the application will have, anybody else that is besides the applicant, will have up to 5 minutes to present their affirmative testimony. After all positive testimony is heard, then anyone with questions, concerns, will have up to 5 minutes to present their information at the microphone. And then if there is opposition, sometimes there isn't, if there is opposition, then the applicant will have up to 5 minutes back at the microphone after all opposition has been heard. And then the final 5 minutes, one and only one person who has spoken in opposition will have a final 5 minutes to present their case. And what I've just discussed there is the public hearing component of each case. So each case we hear tonight has two components. The first is a public hearing, and that's where we hear from you, the public. And after the public hearing is concluded, then the public meeting begins, and the public meeting is where the five of us deliberate and are likely to render a vote on a case tonight. Typically, we vote affirmative, negative, or sometimes table to a later meeting, perhaps if we feel we need more information. So that's the order of how the testimony is heard, and then the meeting and the ultimate decision is made. If this board makes a decision that you feel is incorrect, the next step is for you to file a request for rehearing, and you have up to 30 days to file that request. If you're interested in doing that, you could give Mr. Falk a call for the form for that. So any party of standing has up to 30 days to file a request for rehearing. And this is kind of important because if we get a rehearing request, and if we decide that it has merit and we're going to rehear the case, the approval or the denial is stayed. So in other words, say if an approval was given tonight, I'll be cautioning each person that there's really a 30-day timeout, and if a rehearing request were to come in and we were to hear it, decide to rehear it, that approval is essentially stayed. So I will always be cautioning against starting any big project because that rehearing request could bring it back to step one. If you have a grievance and you file a rehearing request and we don't decide not to rehear it, the next step would be to take your case to Hillsborough County Superior Court. A couple other points I just wanted to go over. The agenda tonight is on that back table behind you. If anybody wants to have a copy of the agenda and you don't, feel free to get up and take it. While folks are here in the room, I ask that we have quiet, in other words, only one person speaking at a time. If your case isn't being heard and you want to have a conversation, you can feel free to step out in the hallway and talk away, but while we're in the room, we hope to have just one conversation at a time. Now, there is one change to the agenda tonight, and that's case number 1, which is Lofts LLC, 34 Franklin Street. That applicant has requested to postpone until January 23rd. So is there anyone here for Lofts 34 Lofts 34, that's at 34 Franklin Street? Well, there's no one here, so nobody's wasted their time coming out here tonight for that one. So the rest of the agenda is set to go. So are we ready to go, board? All right, why don't we get rolling, and we'll start with case number 2. That'll be really our first case tonight. The owner is Louis John Mastressa. The address is 44 Lynn Street, and the request is a special exception to allow an accessory in-law dwelling unit. This is in the R9 zone. Who is here to present this case? Hi, sir. If you'd like to come to the microphone and just give us your name and address. If you'd like, you could briefly walk us through the application. And just one other thing before you get going. All of us as board members have received the written copies of the application. A lot of us site walk the properties if we're not familiar with it, just from the public streets to get a better feel for it. That's the information we have. None of us meet ahead of time to discuss the matter. We just show up tonight and, having 5 independent votes. So, hi, good evening. If you'd like to give us your name and address.
Hello, my name is Louis Mistretta. I'm the owner of 44 Street, residing. And I would like to go for a special exception to get an accessory dwelling unit in place in the basement of 44 Lynn Street. It's currently a single-family dwelling, and it has a fully finished basement. We would like to add a kitchen and a full bath down in the basement, which I believe will satisfy all of the needs for an accessory dwelling unit. There are the 5 points that we need to meet, and to sum it up, I believe this won't add any congestion to the area. Most importantly, the house will maintain a single-family look. We're not doing any construction or additions to the outside of the house. There's already a door actually in the rear side of the house that would be used for the accessory dwelling. There's a curb cut in the rear end of the house, which we would use for the additional parking for the accessory dwelling unit, which is one of the 10 stipulations in the ordinance for the accessory dwelling unit, which, as I mentioned, already has a curb cut, so there'd be no extra need for the city to provide any of that. As far as the 10 points go, I believe we meet all of them, including being within the 750 square feet. We're at approximately 725 square feet total for the accessory dwelling unit. It's in the same lot. As the owner, I'll be living as a primary resident for at least 5 years. No new entrance to the accessory dwelling unit will be created. No new curb cut. Let's see. As I mentioned, the additional parking that will be added will be in the back, which already exists. It's currently not used as parking space, but I would like to be able to use that as parking space, as it already goes out to the street as an asphalt parking lot. So that's where it would be. There would be no, there's an addition of 1 bathroom, which I don't believe will overload the city's sewage or water usage. I believe that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Is it Ms. Tressa?
Mistretta.
Mistretta, sorry about that mispronunciation. I guess I'll start off with a couple of things. In the application, you had included this page, which is the accessory dwelling units. I assume that there's some handwriting, which oh, you put that in. Well, I appreciate you walking through. You touched on pretty much all the points. There's this one here, I'll just tick through real quick, number 5. It says, the owner of the property shall provide the city of Nashua with a covenant for filing with the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds, along with the appropriate filing fees, and there's some language there. And that is a way that helps the city ensure that it's an accessory dwelling unit and, say, for example, not a 2-family home that's just become. And were you aware of that number 5, and are you testifying you're good with that?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then that was the only point I wanted to make. I guess I just had a couple observations. I site walked your place, and I basically agree with your application. There's a curb cut in the back that if you open the fence, it's kind of a natural spot to be a driveway there. So there's no new curb cut you're proposing. Questions for Mr. Mistretta? All right, I guess no questions. You could have a seat, and we'll see what happens. Is there anybody else here to speak in favor of the proposed accessory dwelling unit at 44 Lynn Street? Anybody else in favor? Anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition? Questions, concerns, opposition, 44 Lynn Street? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Thoughts, Mr. Lionel?
An exceptionally complete application. It answered almost all of my questions, and Mr. Mistretta answered the remaining questions during his testimony, so I have no issues with this.
Thank you. Ms. Vitale?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Mr. Boucher?
I think it's pretty clear cut, and I don't have any issues with the application as it stands. And obviously, we didn't get the exact square footage, but I'm assuming it's under 750.
You said 725.
725, okay, good, okay.
That was
Missed
the one question.
Okay, so I'm all set.
All right, Ms. Boris?
I don't have any questions, I'm all set also. I believe he prepared everything right to the list.
Yep. And my thoughts are the same. I'm supportive of the application. I was supportive after reading it and looking at it. It all made sense to me. And I think it's, the house is well set up with the basement. Unfortunately, it's not over 750, so no variance is needed for that. Would anyone like to make a motion, Mr. Lionel?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion on behalf of the owner, Louis Jean Mistretta. Address is 44 Lynn Street. The request is for a special exception to allow an accessory dwelling unit. Zoning district is R9. This is listed in the table of uses. The addition of the accessory dwelling unit will not create undue traffic. One additional bathroom we don't believe will overload public water drainage or sewer. All of the special regulations are filled, and there is no change to the exterior of the house, therefore it won't make any, other than opening the backyard to the neighboring street for the parking. It won't be out of character. My motion is to approve the special exception.
And that's seconded by Ms. Vitale. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, a show of hands in favor of the motion. So that's 5-0, so that's approved. And again, as I had mentioned earlier, every case has a 30-day window of appeal. I think it's unlikely there was no one here in opposition, but you never know. If you have any questions about that, you could ask, give Mr. Falk a call, but you're approved at this point to go ahead with the in-law. So we wish you good luck on that. I'll close case number 2, the public meeting on case number 2. And you're all set. If you'd like to head out, you don't need to stick around for any reason.
Unless you want to.
Unless you want to. We could use a few more members, so if you're interested, give the mayor a call. All right, we'll keep going. I'll open the public hearing on case number 3. The owner is Peter Kittredge. The address is 193 Ash Street. The request is a special exception to work within the 75-foot prime wetland buffer of Salmon Brook to replace a 6 by 10-foot shed with a 12 by 22 single-car garage. Hi, good evening. Could you give us your name and address for the record?
Yes, the name is Peter Kittredge. I'm the owner of 193 Ash Street in Nashua. It's the last house on the dead end next to the Salmon Brook. So before coming here tonight, of course, I had to go to the Conservation Commission and make sure that they were happy with it, and they did give their approval. I'm here because I want to remove an existing utility shed, 6 by 10, and replace it with a single-car garage in the same spot. Had the wetland scientists come over, evaluate the property, and make sure that the construction plan was good. He agreed with it, and so did the Conservation Commission. Had a resurvey done of my property to make sure that I wasn't going to infringe on anyone's boundaries, and that came out fine. I have a copy of it here, and I think I put a copy in with the application. There's not going to be any change in any traffic patterns because it's replacing parking in my private driveway with a garage. There shouldn't be any problem. I only have one abutting neighbor, And she's 85 and didn't feel like coming out in the snow tonight. She was going to join me, but she's all for it, and I'm ready to go.
All right, any questions for Mr. Kittredge? Guess one point I'd bring up was on November 9th, you had a written letter by the Conservation Commission that gave you approval. It says two things. One, start the process to control a small amount of knotweed on the property, and then place a wetland boundary marker sign at the rear of your property. You familiar with that letter?
I have that letter, and I've already mounted the wetlands buffer signs for them, permanently mounted. And they agreed to, next spring, to start with the knotweed elimination, or attempt to, anyway, control it.
Yeah.
So, right now, the project isn't scheduled to start until April, so.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Kittredge? I think we're all set with your application. So you could have a seat. We'll see what happens. Is there anybody else to speak in favor of Mr. Kittredge's proposal to replace his shed with a one-car garage at 193 Ash? Anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition to the proposed garage at 193 Ash Street? Seeing no opposition, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Thoughts, Ms. Vitale?
It seems pretty clear-cut, and since the Conservation Commission does have their two stipulations there, it looks pretty much like what I would agree to from their perspective too, and it meets our criteria, so I'm in favor.
Thank you. Mr. Lionel?
I agree with what Ms. Vitale said.
Mr. Boucher?
I'm agreeing with the application, and, you know, this is not a case where the garage is encroaching on any side setbacks or anything, so this is strictly really the wetlands buffer issue, so, and with the Conservation Commission thumbs up, I'm happy with this application. I support it.
Thank you. Ms. Boris?
I also support the application.
All right, and I do as well for the reasons stated, and I guess one other point, you know, this house to me looks like it was there a long time before wetland regulations came in, and that's also a unique situation on the property in that, there was a house and a driveway there, and the owner wants to put the garage on the driveway, replace a shed. It's a reasonable thing to do, and for an older structure like this, I think it's all good. So I'm in favor of it also. Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Vitale?
Okay, can we do that? On behalf of the owner, Peter Kittredge at 193 Ash Street, he's requesting a special exception to work within the 75-foot prime wetland buffer of Salmon Brook to replace a 6x10 shed with a 12x22 single-car garage. It's in zoning district RB. It's listed in the table of uses at 190-112. Will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. In fact, there should be no change in traffic due to this addition of the single or replacement of shed for the single-car garage. Will not overload public water, drainage, sewer, or other municipal systems. There should be no change in that. Special regulations are fulfilled. I want to note that there's wetland special conditions attached to a special exception for this within the prime wetland buffer, and I believe that all of them are going to be met. Do I need to read those?
Yeah, why don't you? Maybe I should have gone through them. I will say that in my, I think the application covers it, but if you wouldn't mind ticking through those, I think it would be prudent.
The wetland special conditions, there are 9 of them. One cannot reasonably be avoided. 2, least damaging, best practical alternative is proposed, acceptable mitigation incorporated to minimize loss, necessary for productive use of an adjoining buildable land, no rare or endangered species, adequate erosion and sediment control methods. Proposed activity shall not significantly impair the wetland capacity for wildlife and fishery functions. Project shall not impair the stability of the water body's bank, wetland, and buffer function of absorption capacity and storage shall not be impaired. The Conservation Commission did vote yes for this, and they had their 2 recommendations. Hold on for a second, which are start the process to control the small amount of knotweed on the property and properly remove and dispose of any other invasive species where possible. Number 2 was place a wetland boundary marker sign in the rear of the property now that has actual wetland bounds have been delineated. I'm sorry, I can't say that. I believe by testimony that marker has already been placed. Finally, will not impair the integrity or be out of character with the neighborhood or be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the residents. One neighbor was going to come and did not. There was no opposition, and I will motion to have this approved.
Motion on the table to approve. The motion is seconded by Mr. Lionel. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, a show of hands in favor of the motion to approve, and that's unanimous. So, Mr. Kittredge, we've approved your proposed garage. Remember, there's that 30-day window of appeal. Sounds like you're not taking action till the snow melts, so that'll long be beyond that appeal period. So we wish you good luck, and with that, I'll close the public meeting on case number 3. All right, have a good night, sir. We're moving right along. I'll open the public the public hearing on case number 4. The owner is Shirley Brothers. The address is 6 Greenfield Drive. The request is a variance to encroach 12 feet into the 40-foot required rear yard setback to construct a 12 by 12 open deck. This is in the R18 zone. Good evening again. If you'd like to give us your name and address for the record.
Shirley Brothers, owner 6 Greenfield Drive, and I'm here to do an open deck 12 by 12. The main concern is it will be a second way out of the house in case of an emergency. It will adhere to the neighborhood and the house, blend in with the house. It's a dead corner space, and I will be able to sit out on nice days. And it will increase the value of the house, and it will blend in with the neighborhood and the house.
All right. Any questions, Mr. Lionel?
Clearly, we talked about this back in a September meeting. Why, I don't understand why we're here again.
Because I was going to put a smaller deck on, and I didn't have the setbacks. It was going to be a 6 by 12, but now we decided to put a 12 by 12, so I needed a variance for the setback.
Maybe just to clarify that, when Ms. Brothers was here before, it was for a 12 by 12 sunroom.
Sunroom.
So there was a deck that she was removing
I remember that.
and replacing it with a sunroom. And that sunroom, let me just remember what it was here. Mr. Falk probably remembers off the top of his head. It was a rear yard, 12 feet into the 40-foot rear yard for the sunroom. So that sunroom's been built.
Yes, and it's been inspected, yes.
And then at that point, she was gonna have a small deck, which was basically under the radar screen for any sort of,
Require any zoning board approval.
Okay, I understand now. I got confused because the dimensions seemed, there were a lot of similarities, but.
oh yeah, and I was confused too, and in fact, I had to call Mr. Falk to have him straighten me out of my confusion. And that previously was 12 by 6, and this proposed 12 by 12, which you came up with is also greater than 4 feet above the ground,
Right.
and that kicks it into a rear yard setback. So the request she was here before, we had approved, and that's built. So this is a separate request, which sounds very similar to the first one, but is different.
Okay.
All right. Any questions from Ms. Brothers? I guess, as before, I gotta tell you, I didn't go look at your house this time, because I looked before and you can't see behind it anyway. It looked all good to me. So I'm just making the assumption that, you know, it doesn't look like it's overbearing on any of the butters or anything. I'd just like to have your testimony about that.
No, it isn't. In fact, it doesn't, it's not gonna, it'll blend in with the neighborhood, it'll blend in with the yard. It's not the length of the house. And there'll be stairs, and it will improve the neighborhood also, and the value of the house. And like I said, it's a second way out, but it's very conservative. It's not, you know, large. It's just gonna be a deck, open deck with railing.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? I think we're all set, ma'am. You could have a seat, see what happens here. Is there anybody else to speak in favor of the proposed 12 by 12-foot deck at 6 Greenfield Drive? Anybody with questions or concerns about the proposed 12 by 12 deck? Seeing no opposition, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Maybe I'll throw out my thoughts first. I was equally as confused as you, so like I said, I spoke with Mr. Falk, who straightened me out. I didn't, I might have a concern with this if a butters had concerns in the back, like, you know, it was kind of encroaching on privacy or something. But with the deck not being, you know, it is 4 feet above the ground or about that, it seems like I'm seeing it like the applicant says, which is it's a nice addition to the house and it's not causing anybody any trouble. So I'm good with it, but I'd certainly like to hear 4 other opinions. Mr. Boucher?
I'm actually obviously in favor of the application. I was in favor last time when she put the sunroom. I kind of got what was going on here and by the diagram, and basically I remember that was just going to be a deck within the you know, setback. And so, you know, again, what we're looking at is a small incursion of that, just like the sunroom was, right? And the fact that the matter is, the deck is directly, like, would be kind of like right in the middle of the house in the back. So, again, you've been by the house, I've been by the house, it's tough to see behind it, never mind see the deck. So, again, for those reasons, I don't see any detriment to this application. And in fact, you know, again, I think that the applicant's done a good job in, you know, presenting and last time what she was doing, and this time also, and, you know, what the purpose is. So I'm in full favor of the application.
All right, Ms. Vitale?
I'm in favor of it also. It'd be a pretty normal sized deck. Anything smaller is, you can't really use them as well, so I'm in favor of it. I don't think that it encroaches anywhere or is gonna cause any issues with the neighbors, as you can see from the application.
All right, Mr. Lionel?
I have no issues with this application.
And Ms. Boris?
And I'm also in favor.
Okay. Maybe I'll hazard a motion. I'm going to make a motion on behalf of Shirley Brothers at 6 Greenfield Drive, and again, the request is to encroach 12 feet into the 40-foot required rear yard setback to construct a 12 by 12-foot open deck. I believe the board finds a variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, which is, you know, a moderate-sized deck. This is an R18 zone, and given the situation of the house in the backyard, to have a deck that lines up with the existing rear entrance exit of the house, and to have a reasonable sized deck, there is an incursion into the rear yard setback, but I think the board finds that 12-foot incursion is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. I think the board finds it'll not adversely affect properties values of surrounding parcels. The applicant's testimony is that the increase to her property is probably likely to, a rising tide, all the boats will rise up, so to speak. I think the board finds it's not contrary to the public interest and substantial justice to the landowner as served, so I make a motion to approve as presented. That motion is seconded by Mr. Boucher. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, a show of hands in favor of the motion. So, Ms. Brothers, that is approved. Remember, there's that 30-day window of appeal. If you have any questions, you give Mr. Falk a call. We wish you good luck. And with that, I'll close the public meeting on case number 4. Are we good to keep going? All right, I'd like to open the public hearing on case number 5. The owner is the John J. Flatley Company. The address is 200 Innovative Way. The request is a use variance to allow a drive-through facility for a building approved for a restaurant. This is in the Park Industrial, the PI zone, and this is a request for a use variance. Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Gerald Prunier. I'm an attorney with offices at 20 Trafalgar Square in Nashua, and here representing the John Flatley Company this evening. The location of the restaurant, which is already built and is in Innovative Way. It's down in the back off of Spitbook Road. I think all of you know where it is. What is being requested is a variance for what I call a pickup window. Unfortunately, the zoning ordinance calls it drive-through window and so forth. What this is many of the restaurants now allow you to call in for your dinner and pick it up. Giorgio's, a lot of the sit-down restaurants. And this is the purpose of this request, is for a sit-down restaurant which will allow you to come back and order dinner and pick it up at the rear of the building in the pickup area. It is food to be taken home, not to be eaten in the parking lot or in the surrounding area, but it's more for people to take home. This area along Spitbook Road has many apartments, including the John Flatley's 560 apartments on top of the hill, that this use of some of the millenniums is easier for them to take care of, to do. Sometimes when it's my turn to cook at home, I call in and take it home. It's a little easier that way. It's probably even a little bit more edible. I do, however, if the board is inclined to grant the variance, is that they put a condition on it that this variance runs only with a sit-down restaurant, so that it separates it from a fast food restaurant. There's no reader board or order board. There's nothing here. You have to, all you do is just pick up your dinner. You've already ordered it, and that's the case. We feel that it's not out of character with the neighborhood. The restaurant is right there. It's not going to influence any of the, or devalue any of the surrounding properties. It's in the rear of the building, and it's a treat area, as you well know, in the rear of that particular building. The board has any questions, I'm willing to answer them as best I can.
So it's just call in, there's no microphone somewhere else in the parking lot to say anything, it's just drive up to the window, say your name,
Yeah.
be handed a bag.
No reader board, no ordering. The ordering is already done.
Any other questions for Mr. Prunier? You had mentioned a few minutes ago about, I think you said runs with a sit-down restaurant, because I did have the concern about, this is the Park Industrial Zone, it's kind of a higher end, not really, not intended to be, highway business or have fast food. And, the stipulation, like no order board, no reader board, I think goes, to me, a long way to allowing you to do what you want, because I agree, you see more and more of these. I mean, the Outback has them, the newer 99 restaurants have, and they're becoming kind of standard for these smaller chain restaurants.
There's reasons for them. I mean, it's not too many years ago that pharmacies didn't have drive-through windows. Times are changing, and of course, that's one of the reasons why this board's here. Times change and zoning ordinance don't keep up with them. In this particular case, we do allow for drive-through under the ordinance, under certain conditions, but not for a pickup window. There are certain conditions on a drive-through that are much different than what we're looking for here. We're probably looking at maybe 2 cars an hour, if that, or 3 cars an hour at dinner time at night. And it's just times have changed. And the other reason, some of the restaurants you see some parking out in front where they reserve for pickup and so forth. But these are very valuable to the owner of the restaurant because they like to reserve as many of those for the elderly, because the elderly don't walk as fast and as far as they used to. And also, it takes them out of having in the restaurant itself the orders being brought out to the front desk and people waiting. So it's just a new way of trying to handle it and do it in the back. But as I suggested, and as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, I think that there should be some conditions, if you're inclined to grant the variance, that it be just for a sit-down, no order boards.
On the term sit-down restaurant, on one hand, like when I heard that, I'm, oh, this is a sit-down restaurant, but couldn't a McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts say they're also a sit-down restaurant, or is there some
No, most-
definition that's beyond that?
No.
Oh, wait a minute, what's that, Mr.?
Usually they have wait staff that serve you, like where McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or the typical fast food restaurants, you walk up to the counter and you order your food, and you take it and you sit down by yourself. I think what Attorney Prunier means is they'll have a wait staff, like you sit down, they give you a menu, you order, they bring it back to the kitchen, and they serve you your food.
It's a typical restaurant when you go to sit down and spend an hour to 2 eating dinner.
I think I like the term wait staff restaurant versus sit-down.
I have no
It's just my
problem with
thought.
that.
Isn't it really, as he was suggesting, or I think as you were saying, that there was, no ordering while you're in your car waiting
Waiting.
to pick it up? Because
Yeah.
as we've been saying, the sit-down restaurant is sort of ambiguous, and I can think of a number of restaurants where it's sit-down, but, is, in some, maybe there's robots that bring you your food or something like that.
Oh, that's my next one, I'm coming.
Oh.
I'm coming. I have no pride of authorship in the description of what a sit-down restaurant
Right,
is.
yeah,
You can-
so I think what we're trying to do is avoid having a drive-up speaker order into the clown and then pick up your order at the window. And if we could find a way of wording that stipulation, it doesn't have to be a clown.
Mr. Boucher, did you want to
Yeah,
jump in?
just maybe a common observation. I generally am in favor of what you're proposing, and again, that was my first thought, was whether or not this is gonna be like a Dunkin' Donuts or that type of thing. So, with that, number one is, obviously, the drive-through, when we talk about that, we always talk about, the cars in queue and all that. From this layout, the way you have it here, if there's gonna be a backup issue, but you're saying there's not gonna be many cars there, but it would be really an issue that would stay on the property, it wouldn't back up, right?
That's
It's an
correct.
innovative way, right? It's pretty obvious.
This parking, there's parking for, I think, 14 cars before you get
Right.
up in here.
Right. And it was just interesting, and again, I don't want to belabor the conversation, but it was just interesting about, we're talking about sit-down restaurant and how, like the Press Cafe and the noodle place, they're not fast food. I don't consider full wait staff, but there is some type of staff because they give you numbers for your table and they come and bring you your food, right? So there's that kind of thing. But it's just interesting, that whole area, how crazy busy it is, during the weekends. And when I was looking at this, I was thinking about, because I tried to go to Press Cafe on Saturday, I had to leave because there was no place to park. There was not one parking spot in front of that place. And then I ended up walking in there again later, and it was just crazy. So I know this is gonna be successful as it is, but I was just, curious as to whether or not it's gonna be fast food. I think I have my answer there. So whatever we can do to try to mitigate that, I think would be important.
Ms. Vitale?
Just to confirm, hours are going to remain the same as what the restaurant is open. It won't extend past so that
That's
somebody
correct.
could pick up, but the restaurant not
That's
be open.
correct. Usually, I don't know if you're familiar, but some of the restaurants that I'm familiar with, they won't take orders after 9 o'clock. So the restaurant, it's much earlier than what the restaurant stays open.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Prunier? We're all set, you could have a seat. Was there anybody else to speak in favor of the proposed drive-through facility, we'll call it, at 200 Innovative Way? Anybody else in favor? Anybody with questions, concerns, or opposition to the proposed drive-through? Seeing none, close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Thoughts, Mr. Lionel?
I'm in favor of it. We just need to find the right wording for that stipulation.
I think I just throw out no reader board or no order board on site, and that the hours of operation don't extend beyond the hours of operation of the restaurant. I mean, I'm the order board, reader board, I think that stipulation, I think would go a long way, because you kind of prevent, if you're anywhere near Dunkin' Donuts, you're hearing people yelling back and forth all the time. If you're anywhere in the parking lot, and, and it slows things down a lot, versus the order ahead where you, in theory anyway, you just drive up and pick it up and go. And I didn't know the other thing we had talked about was if this approval runs that it is well, the sit-down restaurant, I think that's, to me, that's too broad. But with the wait staff, I think that does tighten it up a bit, but.
I would be hesitant on restricting it like that.
Okay.
I mean, what we're trying to do is make it so that people going to this pickup window have ordered in advance. They're not ordering on site.
My sense would be that the no reader board or no order board would cover that. There's a stipulation.
Probably, yes.
If you'd like, I'd like to, Mr. Boucher.
And again, just an observation, right? Dunkin' Donuts, use your app and you show up over there. You don't have to, order at the board, you just show up, right?
I guess I haven't downloaded that app yet.
I don't
didn't
do
know
it
you could
either. I see the young people doing it all the time, right?
okay.
And I can't be bothered, right? So I agree with Mr. Lionel that we don't want to restrict them too bad, but again, I just want to make sure that we're not leaving any slightly door open. And again, somebody would have to really work hard to put a fast food there. But I'll go along with whatever the board wishes. I just want to point out that, that we do the best we can to not restrict them, but be very clear, and I think you probably have, the verbiage for that. It's just a concern, that's all.
Any other thoughts? Maybe I'll throw a motion and see what you think of it. I'll make a motion on behalf of the owner, John J. Flatley Company at 200 Innovative Way, and the request is a use variance to allow a drive-through facility for the proposed, for a building approved for a restaurant. I think the board finds that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, which is to have call it a takeout window or a food pickup window. And I'll say right off the bat that the stipulation would be that this approval would be that there's no reader board or no order board on site, with the strict intention that the food is ordered ahead of time and folks pull in and pick it up and move on, so that the ordering is not done on site. and as testimony by the applicant's attorney, that the intention is that for that food to be eaten on-site as in the parking lot. And I think with that stipulation, the board finds it's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance to allow this drive-through facility. I think the board finds it will not adversely affect other properties in the surrounding parcels. This restaurant does sit a bit by itself with a large park, industrial park around it. And I think with the stipulations also, I'm sorry, a third stipulation, that the hours of operation of the drive-through facility doesn't extend beyond the hours of operation of the restaurant itself. And with those stipulations, it's not contrary to public interest and substantial justice to the landowner is served. Ms. Vitale has seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion, Mr. Lionel?
I'm not, maybe I misheard part of your motion, but the intent is that food that is picked up there is not consumed in the parking lot, not consumed on site.
Right, that was the testimony by the applicant.
Right, I understand that, but the words I heard, I thought were on your motion were a little different. I could have misunderstood what you
Okay.
said.
No, I wanted to, I guess I was reading what the applicant had stated, which I thought was, I'm pleased at his suggestion of it, that the food is not to be eaten in the parking lot, say like at picnic tables or in cars.
I didn't hear the word "not" is the question. is the
Oh,
issue.
okay, not, okay,
That's
not.
just me. Okay.
So let's just review the stipulations. So I have it. Number one was no order board on site.
Correct,
Number two is the food's not to be consumed on property, is that
yes.
okay? All right.
And again, Mr. Boucher is our acting clerk, so he's getting writer's cramp, keeping
And
the
then the third one
written
was
record
that the
Hours of
the Hours
operation,
of operation of the pickup window is not to exceed the hours of the
not to
restaurant.
extend beyond the
hours of restaurant,
operation of the restaurant.
Okay, I'm good.
Any other discussion on that motion with the two stipulations? Show of hands in favor of the motion, so that's unanimous. I don't need to remind you of the 30-day window of appeal. All right, with that, I'll close the, good luck with the drive-through facility. With that, I'll close the public. All right. With that, I'll close the public,
I have it, Jerry. I have it. Yeah, I have it.
we'll close the public meeting on case number 5 and open the public hearing. Are we good to keep going?
Yes, we are.
Open the public hearing on case number 6. The owner is Raghu and Nalini Dakula. The address is 8 Medallion Court. There's a couple of requests here. Number 1, to encroach 4 feet into the 10-foot right side yard setback to construct a 12 by 26 garage addition to an existing garage. And number 2 is to encroach 3 feet into the 10-foot left side yard setback to construct an attached 9 by 28 prayer room addition on the side and a 20 by 26 family room addition on the side and rear. And number 3, to encroach 3 feet into the 25-foot rear yard setback for a portion of the family for a portion of the family room. And this zoning district is the flexible use overlay district zone. Hi, sir, if you'd like to come to the microphone and give us your name and address for the record and walk us through your application.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Raghu Dokla. I'm an owner of 8 Medallion Court, Nassau, New Hampshire.
Hi, welcome.
We want to add a playroom on the left-hand side of the building, since we don't have any prayer room at my house. We are using one of the bedroom as a prayer room. And on the same side and the back side of the building, we want to add a big family room. The current house we have, we don't have any family room. The room we have is like 10 by 10 living room. So we want a bigger space for the family to spend with that. And also we want to add a third car garage on the right hand side of the building. There are like 2 reasons for that. One reason would be my daughter will be driving in 1.5 years, so we want a third car garage. And also being migrated from India, as for Indian belief, we should have less space left on the right hand side of the building. Since we are building a prayer room on the left hand side, that leaves some more space on the right hand side. So in order to counter that, I had to build something on that. So I thought like best option would be adding a third garage, since we already have a two garage on the right-hand side.
I see. All right. Questions? Mr. Dokala, go. Mr. Lionel.
This house was built in 2011, 2012?
Yeah, 2000.
When did you buy it?
When did you?
When did you buy it, buy the house?
That's 2012, it's a brand new house.
I'm sorry?
2012.
2012. That's not a very long time. I mean, it sounds like you could have bought a house on a bigger lot or bigger house if you had these needs.
Yeah, that time we don't have affordability to go for a bigger home. That's why we went for the small house that time. Now we were able to save something. Now we want to expand the house. So.
Any other questions? I guess I have a question. When I took a look at the area, it was interesting because the house on your right has, looks to me like maybe a great room or something over the garage. And so the thought came to my mind, I don't know what the square footage of it is, but the square footage over a two-car garage was pretty large. I mean, the garage is probably 24 by 24. And had you considered adding square footage there without incurring setback issues?
Yeah, the reason we want to build in the first floor because we want to add a prayer room as well. And we always wanted the prayer room in the first floor, not in the second floor, so that we can do the prayer service easily. And since we are building anyway in the first floor, we want to add the family room on the same side.
I see. Because I guess right now, I mean, there's no vegetation or anything, like the side yards, pretty much for the whole area. I hadn't been up that way, actually, since most of that street had gone in. But, in time, a lot of times folks put fences up or hedges, and a concern I have is that with those small side yard setbacks, it's close to the neighbors, and on both sides, it's hard to get around back. I mean, a lot of times if, there's a fire or a crew needs to get back there, I find that to be, in the state it's in, like you just kind of probably go around on the neighbor's property, but if the neighbors wanted to put up a fence, it would be kind of tight on both sides of it, and I just, I find that a little bit concerning. Just a thought. I didn't know if you had any words to that.
Yeah, we have not thought about that. We thought we're just encroaching 3 feet and there should not be a problem with other neighbors as well. So, yeah, we did not have a thought about that, so.
Because I didn't, I guess another question I have is the flexible use overlay district. Have you ever heard that term before? Did you know you were buying into a flexible use overlay district?
No, sir, I never heard about that.
Yeah, because this is actually in the R40 zone. And R40 means 40,000 square feet or an acre, approximately. And when this project, this whole area was conceived, there was a element in the zoning book called a flexible use overlay district. And the reason for that was that a bonus would be given. In other words, the developer, instead of being held to acre lots, could build smaller lots, but leave some public space open, like the trails and such like that. And so these lots, as I'm looking in front of me at the square footage, are about quarter acre. Do I have that right? So the underlying zoning here is acre lots. These on Medallion Court are quarter acres. What should be there are acre lots, or in other words, if you took 4 lots, yours and two, one on the left and 2 on the right, that's the large size lots that is the underlying zoning. But again, a flexible use overlay was provided, but I find that and encroachments to setbacks are, to me, the bar is higher in a flexible use overlay because they're already kind of whittled down to a quarter acre. versus an acre. So, I mean, I find it interesting that you as a homeowner, you're hearing that for the first time from me while you're standing here looking for a variance, but I do struggle a bit with the request at the moment because of, you know, the setback incursions in the already, you know, rather small quarter-acre lot. But that's not really a question, it's just where my head's at, and I just wanted to kind of pass on that flexible use overlay history to you for what it's worth.
I'll share the open space.
Yeah, so there is open space, yeah, I haven't, which I guess I hope you can all use, because when this went in, that's what it's there for, you know, the smaller lots to provide the open space for the others. Anyway, that's just some thoughts I have. I didn't know if there are any other questions for the applicant while he's here. Any other questions? I think Mr. Boucher has a question for you.
So, just explain to me again the reason for the third garage.
Yeah, as per Indian belief, we should have less open space left on the right-hand side of building, which is where the two-car garages are there. Since we are building on left-hand side the prayer room, then we'll have like more open space left on the right-hand side. So we not to counter that, we had to build something on the right-hand side.
All right, so what you're saying is the requirement of your beliefs is that it should almost be even on either side?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I understand. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Vitale, do you have another question?
What were other options that you considered as far as, did you, like, not building the garage for the extra car? And other options that you might have considered, so you didn't have so many incursions going on your property?
Yeah, since we want to build a prayer room, that should be always the left-hand side of the building. In order to do that, we had to build something on the right-hand side. So it can be a car garage, anything else. Since we already have two car garages, I thought it's the best option to build a car garage on the right-hand side. And we have a more space left on the back-hand side of the building. There we can build a bigger family room.
Okay.
Mr. Boucher?
So just ask you another question again, and sorry if I'm having you repeat, just so that I can understand better. So as Ms. Vitale asked if there was other options, and you very clearly stated that the prayer room needs to be on the left side of the house.
Yes.
So as I look at your property, and again, maybe I don't see what's inside or what's outside, but was there a possibility of repurposing an existing space that you have in your house on the left side and adding the space that you're looking for to the back side of the property? So meaning to say that you would not change the dimensional characteristics of your home on the front, but really adding these spaces to the back side of your property where the incursion is really very diminished as opposed to, and I'm talking about the physical space, you know, on either side, that maybe there's a possibility to, if you're gonna displace a room in the house as a prayer room, then that may be something that you say, okay, I need to add that square footage to the back of the house with the family room and the other space you have here. So you follow what I'm saying? So basically thinking of it as, again, did you think that, was there a possibility of adding all this space to really, as an addition to the back of the home, so that you don't upset the balance that you're looking for?
Yeah, we thought about that instead of not building anything on like sides of the building, like left and right hand side. But as again I said, like as per Indian belief, the prayer room should be on east side of the building, which is the left hand side of the building, not the back of the building. So if you want to build a prayer room, we had to build on the left hand side only.
All right, so follow-up question. The prayer room that you're looking to have on the left side of the building, what I was, guess, maybe was suggesting is that if you had repurposed whatever rooms exist on the left side of the building right now as your prayer room, do you follow what I'm saying? And whatever rooms those were, that purpose would be placed somewhere else. So I'm not suggesting that you put the prayer room in the back of the home. I'm just saying that you were looking to have your prayer space on the left side of the building. So I'm saying your existing home, whatever rooms those are, or room it is in the front left, that would be your, that I'm proposing, or an idea would be that could be your prayer room. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just saying in my mind, that could have been an option where that be your prayer room, and then you put your additions, all your additional space on the back side of the house. Am I, and I might not be clear when I'm
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but yeah, we need to look into that and see how it works, so, I mean, we have,
You
Yeah,
you-
she-
you have to
You can
wait.
come testify. If you'd like,
yeah, she's my wife, so one of the
yeah,
owners.
I guess, why don't you come up, ma'am, and give us your name and address, just for the record, and, hi.
The reason,
I'm sorry, could I get just your name and name there?
my name is Nalini Dokla. Good
welcome.
evening,
Yep.
everyone. The reason I can answer your question.
Can you speak in the mic? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time.
I can answer your question. You said like whatever is the existing room on the left side, we can use. Why can't we use as a prayer room? But every year we have a prayer service frequently, and around 200 or 250 people usually come for the prayer service. And whatever the room is on the left side, it's very small one. We cannot use, like, that many people won't fit into that room. So that's the reason we thought like we'll build a big one. So
So that
everybody can sit over there, and the existing room, whatever is following that room, there also people can sit.
So, I understand now, because it's an existing room. I guess my suggestion is, and it's just my thought, right? That it appears that you would be investing a significant amount of money in your home.
Yeah.
And, you know, all the power to you, that's your home, your castle, that's what where you live. With that investment, and I'm not suggesting that you spend more money, I'm just saying that a small room can be converted to a larger room by having the right contractor there can actually expand. That's how people do these open concepts. They have to restructure the home or just add support. So I guess what I'm saying is I know that you may have an existing room, but there's probably still possibilities, right, of making a bigger space, right, in the existing space? I mean, the home that you have, right, what I'm saying is that the house is a certain depth of foundation, right? And, you know, I guess what I believe is that there is probably a way to make that room, make a bigger room from an existing space, right, by remodeling.
Yeah, in the same floor, we have the kitchen, we have a bigger kitchen, we cannot make it small.
Right.
We need a bigger kitchen in the same area. Only thing we have is like a small.
Speak into the microphone, please. You can pull it out.
Yeah, if you want to just pull that out, and then, yeah, thank you.
In the same first floor, we have a kitchen, which is the bigger size. We don't want to cut it to the smaller size because my wife needs always a bigger kitchen. And that's why I don't think we can like combine any rooms and make it a big.
All right, so thank you very much. I was just trying to get a feel for what's there, and again, it's not me to tell you what to do. It's just trying to understand what other possibilities existed in your home. So thank you very much.
Mr. Lina, do you have a question?
I do. Did I hear correctly that this prayer room is not just for your family, but you also invite other people
Yeah.
to come?
Yeah, at
multiple
my
times a
home,
week?
we do like prayer service regularly, so a lot of people will be coming, like around 150 to 200 people. So the space we have is
Excuse me,
like,
150 to 200 people
yeah,
in your home?
yeah, I mean, not including kids and everyone, not everybody will be sitting in the prayer service.
Mr. Falk, is there any kind of zoning issue related to that? speak into the microphone, please, because this is.
Adults would be, it's like 45 to 50 families. So adults are like closely 90, including kids and all. Usually it's like yearly once we have that much bigger prayer service, including the kids. It's almost 140 to 150. They come and they go. But not most of the time. Most of the now also we are having prayer service since like last 3 days. It's like 20 families, 20 to 25 people every day we are having prayer service.
And where do these people park?
We live in the cul-de-sac.
I didn't understand that,
In
please.
a cul-de-sac. Say live in a
Well,
cul-de-sac.
yes, okay.
And easily like 30 to 40 to 50 cars easily can fit into that same street, so.
Any,
To answer your question, homeowners can have people over for playing cards or prayer service or book club or different things. I mean, if it were a business, and that would be a different story, but, you know, people coming over to pray or, you know, like I said, play cards or talk, or, it's not really a
Okay. I
zoning
wasn't,
issue with
I
that.
didn't think there was, but I wasn't sure.
It's just, you know, that's an awful lot of people to have come over for a party. I mean,
Multiple times per week.
yeah, I've never heard of it. I've never,
No, I
that's
hadn't
a
either.
significant amount of cars and traffic parked in a cul-de-sac that could impede fire or police or emergency access, but, that's just a significant amount of cars coming over to someone's house.
I mean, it's not like every time, like at least once in a year, but most of the time it may not be that many.
I mean, could be up to 150 people, but sometimes it's less
Only
than.
once in a year.
Once in a year, like usually in the summer, once in a year.
That's very important prayer service we do like every year.
Every year, once in a year.
So even there's a once in a year, we want to fit everyone.
I mean, there are a lot of homeowners that have large Super Bowl parties or Christmas parties or holiday parties, birthday parties, graduation parties. You know, I see a lot of them, maybe not with that many cars, that many people, but, you know, you do see them, and there's not really any zoning criteria against that. Unless it's a business and people are coming there on a regular basis to purchase things or use a service or something. But just people getting together for prayer or something, I mean, I wouldn't consider it a church or a place of worship per se. The use of the home, the use of the property is for a single-family home. If it were a regulated place of worship, then it would be, you know, it would need a site plan, and that's a whole different level.
any other questions? Ms. Boris?
How would we regulate if it's gonna be a house of worship, or just inviting
Well, I don't think,
individuals over?
I don't
It's
think
not a regula-
it's not being a church, it's just a home with that they have some large groups of folks over.
200 individuals is quite a large amount of guests.
Well, any other questions? I think we're all set with the testimony now. You could have a seat, and I'll ask, is there anybody else to speak in favor of the request at 8 Medallion Court for the side yard and rear yard setback incursions? Any other folks in favor? Is there anyone with questions, concerns, or opposition? I see a couple hands, and we do have a letter here from 6 Medallion Court. Is one of you folks? Yeah, if you'd like to come first, sir, and instead of me reading the letter, I think you'll probably speak to this letter. Sure. And again, if you could start off with your name and address, excuse me, for the record.
Good evening. This is Venkat Prasad Tiruvedi from 6 Medallion Court.
Welcome, Mr. Trivedi.
Hello. Well, I'm here to raise my concerns because I bought my house in 2011. When I bought, I worked with a builder to do some customizations. And when I asked, can you build a bigger building? And he said no, because of zoning restrictions. And I also asked, can you put my house to the right or left? And he said no, because he said he has to maintain the easing distance. So this is the picture taken from the maps. Right now, Jock Career mentioned about the regulation rules. These are already nearby. Would you like me to read my letter?
Yeah, why don't you just read it into the record, because
Sure.
I think it's well stated, and you speak to the points of law in that. And so instead of me reading it in the record, why don't you have
Sure,
at it?
sure. Well, my point is, it would seem that these enforcements would change the characteristics of beautiful landscaping and densify, impede property value. Since I'm next to the 8 Medallion Code, it also concerns me about the safety and access in case of emergencies, because the encroachment is going to take majority of their empty space. And if there is some emergency to reach the backyard, and it has to somewhat cross my property. It also affect my ability to sell my house and narrow down the buyers when compared to other houses in the neighborhood. Also, it will be quite noisy when we go too close to other neighbor, which is already a concern even with the placement we have now. On the back side, it affects our privacy and a view from either our window or from our deck. We paid a lot of premium for this to the builder because of the privacy, landscaping, setbacks, and neighborhood characteristics. Because of that, I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you for that testimony. Are there any questions for Mr. Trivedi? Ms. Vitale?
Is that a picture that is up there currently?
Well, I think that picture is like a Google Maps picture.
Yes,
Yeah, and-
Google Map with the bird's eye,
Right.
top view.
And we have an analogous record of that here.
When I looked at the Google Earth picture of that property, it was an empty lot. So I had to go to the Nashua GIS pictometry to see what it looked like now. I thought that was pretty funny.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Trivedi? I think we're all set with questions, so thank you for your testimony, and you could have a seat.
Thank you.
And then, sir, was there another hand? Did you also have something to say in opposition? If you'd like to come here to the microphone and give us your name and address and let us know what's on your mind.
Good evening. My name is Abul Ansari.
Could I trouble you to spell that? Because if we don't get the spelling right, we could end up in trouble in the court on that. If you never
Yes,
know
I
where
do
things
get
end
that
up.
a lot. It's A-B-U-L. A as apple, B as boy, U as uncle, L as Levo. And my last name is Ansari, A as apple, N as Nancy, S as Sam, A as apple, R as Robert, I as igloo.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm on the other side of 8 Medallion Court. It's 10 Medallion Court. That's my house. It has been a year and a half since I have been living there. And
Can I interrupt with a quick question? You're at 10. If you're looking at number 8, are you on the right or the left? If you're looking at,
He's on the
So-
cul-de-sac.
okay, so you're on the right.
so
The garage side.
Okay,
mine is the last house on the street.
okay, got it.
So if the empty lot which you see is the one which was building right here on the cul-de-sac. So totally understand Mr. Raghu's requirements, and that's fine. My concerns are legitimate, I think. One of the biggest concern is I have my living room on the garage side of 8 Medallion Court. And there are 2 windows in there which directly opens on that side. Bringing another garage will bring that garage closer to my living room, which will kind of compromise the privacy of my living room. Then obviously if we are building something on the setbacks that takes away the area from the setbacks, anything which is going through that flexible land use, like the utility, any kind of digging, since there will be a garage, there will be a drive-through. If there is a drive-through, if we need to get into any kind of utility work, it should be through my lot, or from the, if it's on the other side, it should be from the 6 Medallion Court's lot. That's one thing for the utility or any public service. The other part is the safety, or in case of hazard or emergency issues, reach out to the back. Going through will be only possible through the end or cul-de-sac side of my house. Now, my other concern is, as my other neighbor suggested, that we paid premium for that street because there are only 4 houses. We had our vision that we'll be living in that area with our kids, playing around and enjoying the outdoors. That will be compromised. Again, I have a 8-month-old kid, I have a 2.5-year-old, and an 8-year-old. So all the range is there. Having a construction going on, and that free play area or the beauty of that landscape, that will not be able to enjoy that. So the safety, noise, hazards, dust, all that is there. We paid premium for this last lot, assuming that there will not be much constructions going on around, and it's safe. We don't have to be babysitting even outside while we are at home, watching out every time my kid is going around on his bike or is going on his scooter. Now, those are all the private things. When it comes to the value of the property, having a different set of house in a very similar sets of house, that will diminish the value of the rest of the lots over there. It will definitely compromise the characteristic of that neighborhood, that's for sure. I go in my backyard, look throughout, you can see throughout there, you can say hi, the kids can come along and play. Building going 22 feet or 23 feet, whatever that number is, I don't know. My concern is that will be compromised, and I don't think that will be a good idea. And I'm not here to suggest anything, I'm just here to show my concerns, why I will be concerned about this project.
All right,
Thank
thank you, Mr. Ansari. Any questions for Mr. Ansari from 10 Medallion Court? I think we're all set. Thanks for your testimony. You could have a seat. Was there anybody else to speak with questions, concerns, or opposition? No one else? So, Mr. Duclos, you have the Wright, you come back to the microphone, and would you like to speak to what you've heard here? Some opposition, you have 5 minutes to let us know what's on your mind. Thank you for taking that microphone so we can hear you. And
Yeah, I completely understand my neighbors' concerns. We have not thought about that. We thought, building, adding more rooms in my own lot area will not be bothersome for other neighbors. So that's all I can say. So we thought like we have an open space and we can add more space for the family. So that's the only thing, because we are not aware of any rules and everything. So that's our plan, and we put it in front of City of Nasha. So.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. DeClola? All right, thank you. You could have a seat, and by right, one of you folks can come back and speak, or you could rest with what you've said already. Either want to come back. Are you okay with what you've spoken for? And again, if we could just get your name and address for the record, because we want to get that right.
Venkat Prasad Trivedi from 6 Medallion Court. Well, I do believe in Indian, and I respect what, and understand his request, but I stand on my concerns.
Okay, very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? None. All right, so I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Thoughts on the matter? Who would like, Ms. Vitale?
The two speakers in opposition, I hear the concerns because those lots are built to be like that. So what I picture is if we had 4 people in the area that came for the similar request, there is no doubt that the look and the feel and the density would have it would have a changed appearance in the neighborhood if you had everybody coming in and asking for that type of encroachment. So that's what I'm picturing in this area, is if you had multiple people coming in and asking it. I know we only have one case before us, but that's how this neighborhood was set up, was the setbacks where they are, the smaller lots have the open space. I do hear the issues with the access into the rear of the property. I believe the speaker is correct. If there needed to be access, it's going to be going through the neighbors' yards, more than likely, than through the yard of the residents. If there's any major issues, or it's going to be coming in through the back. I don't really think we can address the use of the house as far as, the amount of people coming. I can't imagine that at some point, if even once a year, but shoot, we have things going on in our neighborhood, and you pass out flyers and say, hey, there might be a lot of traffic here this day, we're doing this special thing, and it's a one-day thing, and your neighbors are aware of it, and you can take care of that. I think it's quite a bit to request as far as an addition, and I do understand and am familiar with the left and the right and all that. I wish I had an interior layout of the house and had a builder come in and speak and say and be able to hear if there was other options available as far as the entire project goes. And I don't have that information. I don't have the information of what else could be there. We've asked a couple of questions, but it doesn't really go into, is there is there other good choices that could be available versus having three sides of the property have incursions into the setback
All right,
in an
thank,
area that has special restrictions to start with?
all right, thank you. Mr. Lionel?
I have a great deal of difficulty supporting this request. The proposed additions to three sides of the house, there's three variances being requested, would result in a building that is significantly outside the character of the rest of the neighborhood. The encroachments, visual and otherwise on the neighbors is undesirable. It's not clear that there isn't some other reasonable way of accommodating the desire, although this is a little bit of an unusual request in that they are requesting this additional space largely for the purpose of attracting large numbers of other people on a regular basis to use this space. What they're using it for, I don't care. But it's not what we normally hear of, I want to build a playroom for my kids. Given everything that we've heard, including the objections of the neighbors, I don't think this is in the public interest. I think it will adversely affect the values of surrounding properties. And there is likely to be some other solution that the homeowners can use to, they may not get everything they want, but again, as Ms. Vitale said, and Mr. Courier was saying earlier, the way these small lots and the houses built right to the edges of the setback, extending that much more is inappropriate.
All right, thank you for your thoughts. Mr. Boucher?
Just a question for Mr. Falk, just because I trying to do the dimensions here. The 20 by 26 family room, when we were talking about, and again, I don't know, we're talking about I know there's a 3-foot encroachment. Is it on the 20 or the 26? Because I don't know what the depth is of, what's the addition size in the back? Is it 20 deep?
It
or
comes out 20 feet and it's 26
okay,
feet
all right.
long.
Okay, so, all right. I hear and understand what the applicant is looking for, and obviously, the applicant, like any other person, has every right to come here and ask us for relief, and that would be anybody in this development or wherever it is. We understand what this development was all about when it was done. This was a huge project. It was a really big thing, right, in the city of Nashua for a while. I again, generally am in agreement that this is pretty intensive. And so, though I understand the requirement of their beliefs that they need to be balanced, I have a hard time to, first of all, say, hey, we're going to put a garage on the right only because it needs to balance the house, and we're going to have an incursion there. So, again, I have a hard time because that garage is almost like, there was no really, the only need for the garage, from what I understand, was to balance the house, not because I've got extra cars, I've got all this other stuff that I need to put under cover. So looking at it that way, I have a hard time with that. The need for the prayer on the left, I have no issues with that. That's our own beliefs. We follow our own beliefs, so that's not what I'm disputing. I'm looking at it for more of the impact, and I honestly believe that there probably is another solution with this property. I would be inclined I would be inclined to, if anything, grant some relief on the rear setback if that was a place that we needed it. Again, you know, I know that we're all kind of trying to understand you know, what they're asking for volume of people coming, and again, I think a lot of this is something that is what they believe, it's cultural. Again, I have no issues with that's not the point. It's like anything else, like Mr. Fox said, you know, we could have somebody in a neighborhood that likes to have parties every weekend, big ones, right? And have these big bashes. So, you know, that would work itself out, I think, eventually. If that would become a nuisance, that would work itself out. But again, I'm not basing my decision based on the number of people that would come. Again, we use our homes how we want, and some of us like just very big empty spaces, and some of us like more room, so it's really up to them. But I know that there's challenges maybe with the existing layout of the home, but I think they were asking for so much here, and some of it is really, to me, not been really justified for what we need. So before I say that, I would not be in support of anything. If it was an inclination of the board, I may be in support of some relief on the rear setback. But right now, I don't feel like I'm in support for any of the side setbacks. And again, maybe with a good argument, maybe a little relief, or maybe on one side or the other. But right now, I don't feel that. At this point, I don't have enough information or evidence that would warrant that. I still think that there's opportunities on this property to do what I think they need to do. It may not be the easiest solution, but, you know, again, we're not here to make judgments on what cost is and all that. I just believe that, you know, these are very large houses and very small lots to begin with, and it's unfortunate in a way because they're not on a bigger lot where there's more opportunity. But I think, again, there is some other feasible methods to maybe get most of what they want with what exists currently there. So if anything, if anybody would entertain that, I would maybe entertain discussion on rear setback relief, but right now, I don't feel support for either left or right side.
Thank you, Ms. Bores.
Well, all of the concerns, I mean, have already been, I agree with all the concerns regarding this request. I really don't feel comfortable to move forth on it because I believe there should be other options before the left and the right and the back. It's just too much. And we do have the two neighbors that are very concerned, and we have to take that in consideration as well.
All right, thank you. Well, my thoughts have pretty much been spoken by the board, but I'm trying to be very sensitive to the need of the prayer room on the east side of the house. However, to me, you know, side yard incursions, especially in a flexible use overlay, are particularly noticeable, and the testimony on the right-hand side about being close to the living room is very persuasive to me. If I owned 10 Medallion Court, thinking coming in closer beyond the setback I agree, it's a definite hindrance to the property value in my mind. So I'm struggling with the left and the right, and in terms of the rear, I'm uncomfortable saying, well, I agree in the sense that the rear yard incursion is certainly less noticeable. I wouldn't say I'm okay with it, but it's because of the access to the back and not being that close to the abutters is much lower on my radar screen. But I'm uncomfortable if there was, say, an architectural rendering of this is what we're proposing and it was the rear yard only. Well, maybe that would be acceptable, but with kind of a 2D overlay, I'm uncomfortable saying, well, I'm not okay with the side, but I'm okay with the rear. I think that's a little, I'm not comfortable going in that direction with what we have, so, and I am sensitive of the flexible use overlay. I mean, this was presented, I was probably on the Conservation Commission back when this came up, and the whole premise of this were these more small postage size lots that were kind of fully built out, looking the same. That was the look and the premium with these open spaces that folks could use and the bike paths along the way. And here, just a few years later, there's a request for a large incursion. And I agree with the testimony in opposition that would make this property look very different from the others, and I don't think it's overall within the spirit and intent, so I'm not able to, I don't find support for it myself, and I just wanted to have my own reasons on the table and out in the open. Mr. Boucher?
So as you're speaking, I mean, I do agree with you with the rear setback. I was just, didn't know if there was something that I was missing there, or, you know, other suggestions. You know, we've, and again, you know, we don't base our decisions based on other applications or anything. But certainly, you know, we're in different neighborhoods of the city where we've approved somewhat, sometimes lesser of incursion, but we're not talking about the same mass of homes, right? These homes are naturally just very big homes. Again, this area was built specifically in that respect. So this is why it's, again, it would be more, I think it would stick out more, right? It would not be the feel of the neighborhood of what there is now. So again, I'll just say that the building envelope still allows for work to be done within an envelope, which there's still significant amount of space that, right, could be barring any other zoning issues for open space, right?
In the rear yard, yeah.
Yeah.
especially. The side yard only has a few feet,
Right.
maybe or so on each side, but the rear does have,
Some room, and the front does have some room, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so again, I go back to, you know, what we stated. I think we all agree that I think there is some other feasible methods to achieve what the applicant's looking for.
Further build out of the
Right,
house, yeah.
right, so.
If there's not any other discussion, maybe I'm gonna make a motion to deny, and we'll see what happens with it. So I'm gonna make a motion, this is again on behalf of the DeColas at 8 Medallion Court. I'm gonna make a motion to deny the request. I'll just summarize the three variances for the left side yard setback encroachment, the right side yard setback encroachment, and the rear side yard setback encroachment. And I'm making a motion to deny the variance, because I think the board finds that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, but I think the board finds that there's other build-out opportunities that could give the applicant more square footage in the house, and perhaps still have come away with a balance that's being looked for. I think the board finds that this request is not within the spirit and the intent of the ordinance, that this proposed build-out on the left, right, and back would be not within the character of the neighborhood, would be, and I think the board finds credibility with the fact that this build-out would impact negatively the surrounding, the property values of the surrounding parcels. I think we find that it's contrary to the public interest and substantial justice is not served, and that the build-out, particularly with the abutters, is not within the spirit and intent of the ordinance, and I guess I'll just leave it at that. So I make a motion to deny the three requests. There's a hand by Mr. Lionel to second the motion. Any discussion on the motion, Mr. Boucher?
Just semantics, you said variance is needed. I think what you meant is not needed.
It's not needed to,
Right.
right, thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? show of hands in favor of the motion to deny. So that's unanimous. So unfortunately, we don't have a successful motion for you. This has been denied. If you have any questions about that, you can call Mr. Falk tomorrow. I want to thank all the folks who came out tonight, and with that, I'll close the public meeting on case number 6. And are we good to keep going? All right, I'd like to open the public hearing on case number 7. It's Volos Realty LLC. The applicant is Bonnie Summers. The address is 217 West Hollis Street. The request is a use variance to allow an attached 20 by 50-foot fenced-in area for outdoor use for a dog daycare in the local business zone. Hi, good evening, ma'am. Could you give us your name and
Bonnie
address?
Summers,
Thank you.
And I live at 14 Preserve Drive, but the property I'm speaking about is 217 West Hollis Street.
All right, welcome. Would you like to walk us through your application for the
Sure.
fence?
I've been an owner of Chewy's Playland for 5 years, and our original location was off of Exit 5, and it took us a long time to get back to that location. And this property is perfect, except for the fact that there's no outdoor space for me. We do have a lot of dogs from the center of Nashua that come to us. Our client base is around 2,000. A lot of them are doctors, nurses, and the hospitals are right there. So 217 West Hollis Street seems like the perfect location. What I would like to do is put a 20 by 50-foot fence attached to the building that will be 6 feet white vinyl, and it will match the stone. It would be on top of a retaining wall that's 8 to 12 inches, just so we could put AstroTurf there and gravel, so it would be enclosed, so we have a place to walk the dogs' safety. There's a busy street there, intersection. I don't think it would be safe for us to be walking dogs in that area for several reasons. One, if one, for some reason, got loose, there's an intersection right there, so it'd be safer to walk them in a fence. Noise level, dogs bark on leashes a lot, so to have them in a fenced-in area that they can't see, it would lessen the noise. I also require my clients to go through hefty, health regulations with the vaccines, making sure their fecals are up to date, that they don't have any contaminant. And if I walk behind the trail that's located behind the building, I don't know what other dogs have walked there, what they might be carrying. I also think that having the area contained will be good for cleanup, for waste. We do clean the area 3 times a day with this solution that only have a pH between 7 and 8, which is the same as our water. It would evaporate and be inside the retaining wall. So there shouldn't be any drainage, if anything, at all. With us taking up those, I think it's about 8 parking spaces, it leaves plenty of parking for the rest of the building. It also doesn't, it's in compliance with the codes and regulations regarding parking, fire lanes, and property lines. And I definitely think that this would help because the area seems busy. Whenever I'm down there, I do see children, people walking. I think it's safer if they can't always just approach dogs, if there's a fence and we have a contained area. I also think that the vinyl fence in the wall would add to the curb appeal of that area. They did a great job remodeling that building, and it looks really nice. I don't think that it would decrease the value at all in the area. I think if anything that we'd be bringing more people and business to the other local businesses there because we have high traffic of people coming and going. I guess that's basically it.
All right, thanks, Ms. Summers. Any questions? Ms. Vitale?
How high, is the fence the same height all the way around or different
So
heights?
the parking lot is kind of slanted a little bit, so that's why it'd be 8 to 12 inches. It's going to be an even height of 6 feet attached to the building. And there will be, there is a door in the back, and there is another door on the side, and there will be gates for fire safety and people coming in and out if they had to. But the dogs would all be safely contained with a double gate system. The hours that were open would be 7 to 6, and I wouldn't allow the dogs outside for walking and bathroom breaks until the hours of 9 a.m. and like 4 p.m. So I think that's in compliance even with children daycares being outside for noise levels.
You all set, Ms. Vitale?
Yes.
I guess I have a question. The, you had talked about, like a little footer wall, like 18 inches high or so.
It's they said it'd have to be 8 to 12 to make it even.
Okay,
Because
there's like a slant there.
yeah, I mean, I could make the fence slanted, but I think it, like, would look better if it was nice and.
Level, yeah. So it seems to me that the way the parking lot is graded, probably the natural grade of the land was in that side of the building, like when it's raining, it's just kind of sheeting off almost to the house on the east side.
Yeah.
And is the idea if you build this wall around it, like it's gonna contain all the rainwater that's in it? Because that's gonna be like a
shouldn't-
swimming pool.
No, so the rainwater, I mean, I guess if it was inside of there's gonna be like a drainage pipe, but it's not gonna be on the bottom, so they're not gonna get, like, every time we spray, even though, like, at the Chewies that we have now, when we spray and clean everything, there's very little drainage. And I did go there during a rainstorm to see how much did flood in the back. And I did speak to the neighbors, and they're fine with the doggy daycare being there. They're very excited to have me there. And they have an area anyways that floods in the back that's always been like that, but I'm not gonna be adding anything to that.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say the neighbors are good with it, because I'd be afraid that they'd be very alarmed.
No, they're actually very excited. When I talked to her about it, she's been contacting me very frequently, like giving me updates and telling me that they're doing construction and stuff, so, yeah, she's very on board with this. And I think that's the only neighbor.
I think so, just that one house, I mean, is the only, to me, might be the only house that would be impacted, because from looking at it, I would have thought that, I mean, me personally, if I had lived there, I think I'd not be enthusiastic about barking dogs in the summertime, even at 9 in the morning, but that's just me.
Yeah, she's, I don't know, she was thinking or going to write an email letter. I don't know if she did.
I don't think we have any testimony one way or the other on
I have
this.
lots of messages from her that she's excited.
Sure, take your word for it, yeah.
Yeah.
The other question I had is on the, you had provided information on, you know, that chemical that you use?
Yeah, the wishy-wash.
Wishy-wash,
I have
yeah.
the chemical sheets and everything. It's calcium hypochlorite, and it's a disinfectant that you have to have the correct amount, and it actually comes like with almost like a sprayer that dilutes it to a perfect, disinfecting chemical. And basically it just evaporates it, it disinfects, cleans, gets rid of the odor, so it doesn't smell in that area. And then it just evaporates, and anything that is draining off, like it's, like you could spray it and it ends up being a pH of a little less than 8. And I think drinking water is between 7 and 8. Like when they do the,
is the middle of the road.
so it ends up not being, it's like neutral for cleaning. And it's non-toxic. And I do have a sheet if you guys.
Well, just one of the things on the sheet, it talked about like inhalation, remove to fresh air, you know, if not breathing, give artificial respiration. I was getting a little worried reading this.
Oh, I think that's if you were to not have it diluted, like if you were to touch the
Okay.
capsules.
I see.
Yeah, once it's diluted, that's why you have to have that special kit that they give you.
So did you say you operate a doggy daycare now?
Yes, I used to operate underneath the Nashua Animal Hospital, and they closed the lease. And now Chewy's Playland is located on Amherst Street. So this would
What-
be a second location,
I see. What's the name of your current business?
Chewy's Playland.
Okay, and that's on Amherst Street? And how long have you been operating that?
A little bit over a year.
I see.
And we have a significant wait list for us to get back in South Nashua.
So, just out of curiosity, at the business you operate now, does that have an outdoor fenced-in area also?
That's outdoor with the same
Setup as this?
AstroTurf and the walls, the retaining walls. I did submit pictures to show like after a rainfall and draining that there was barely anything there. And that was after like a heavy storm. And we have, there it's cedar fence because it's behind the building. Here I would do a white vinyl fence since it's out on a main street. And it matches the property building that you did.
So again, this proposed fencing area would be like green astroturf? Okay.
It would, so it's the retaining wall, there's gravel, sand, and then astroturf.
Okay. Mr. Boucher, I'm sorry, I was just
Just a
go
crazy
right at it.
question, is, when the dogs are out, is that supervised, or you
Oh,
just let them
yes.
know? Yeah.
So I have, I've won Best Doggy Daycare, like, since I've been open for 4 years. Well, I've been open for 5, but we couldn't be in the running. But, I think it's because we have 1 employee for every 10 dogs. So the dogs are well supervised. Other doggy daycares in the area will only like employ 1 per 50 dogs, and I just think that's unsafe. So outside, there would be 2 separate pens within that fenced-in area, and there would always be 1 employee in each pen, if not 2. But that location, I'm not expecting to have more than like 30 dogs coming and going for daycare or training or baths.
And just curious, how much space, and it doesn't really matter, but how much space are you occupying in the building?
In the building, I think it's 6,000 square feet.
So it's just like that completely, that right side of the building?
Yeah, so I was just gonna take the backside, but the demand from the clients were so loud that I was like, fine, I'll take the whole thing.
Okay.
To do stuff, so yeah, I'll have the whole, right side with the front door and 2 side doors.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Boris, Mr. Lionel?
No question.
All right, I guess we're all set for the moment. Have a seat. Is there anybody else to speak in favor? If you'd like to come to the microphone and give us your name and address and let us know what's on your mind.
So my name is Janelle Lowry. I live at 156 Ledge Street in Nashua. I've been sending my dog to Chewy's for over a year, and I can tell you that Bonnie has nothing but the best intentions for her customers and the dogs that go to the current location. Her following over 2,100 customers should attest to this, all living in the greater Nashua area. Chewy's has also been, like Bonnie mentioned, the best in Nashua for 4 years running. By approving to set up the fence at the new location, you will also assure that the dogs that attend the doggy daycare can be safe and a great place for them to interact and play. I live on the same block as the new location, and I feel this would be an amazing asset to the neighborhood, having a place where local families can bring their pets and feel confident that they're in good hands in a secure environment and would give them a peace of mind. Not only does Bonnie run a daycare, she also takes in multiple dogs to foster until they find a safe and loving home, and I hope you'll consider in her favor. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ms. Lowry. Any questions? None? Ma'am, if you'd like to come up, let us know what's on your mind. You just pull that out, it might be easier.
Hi, my name is Abigail Winkler. I live at 6A Belmont Street here in Nashua. I have known Bonnie since 2013, and I did work with her at her first daycare for over a year. She's been taking care and seeing my dogs at her daycare and boarding and grooming facility for over 4 years now. There is a reason for Chewy's being the best daycare since she's been open. Her and her staff do ensure that the care for all the dogs that come there get the best, nothing but the best. She understands the need for not only indoor play, but outdoor play. Fresh air is important for all breeds, even to go to the bathroom. The outdoor facility will keep the daily routine that clients and their dogs have at home, but also do ensure that the puppies that do come continue their training as well. I do myself have multiple dogs, and my 5 6-pound dog. She's 4, but she does have a lot of energy, and the outdoor facility that she has right now at Chewy's ensures her that she gets to run around like she wants to. But on top of that, she also does get to play on the equipment that Bonnie has, because not only is it outdoors for bathroom and playtime, but the equipment does ensure growth as well. The new daycare would be beneficial for me because I live right down the street, and a number of clients do want to come back to a South Nashua location. So this would be beneficial for a number of clients. So I do think that granting Bonnie's request for the fence would be beneficial for a number of reasons. Bonnie looks for the best daycare, and she runs the best daycare, so the outdoor facility is a benefit for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Winkler. Any questions? We're all set. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else to speak in favor? Hi, come on up, sir. Again, your name and address for the record, and you might just want to lift that up because you're tall.
Hi, my name is Sean Fisher. I'm at 18 Marion Lane in Nashua. I've been a client of Bonnie for about 4 years. We have 2 dogs. We were at the South Nashua location. We moved it to the Amherst Street location. I think adding the new Nashua South location would be hugely beneficial to my family, my dogs. They love it there. We trust her with our dogs. My wife doesn't trust anybody with our dogs except for Bonnie. They go to the daycare weekly. They love it there. They have a great time. The outdoor play area is so important for to work out the energy with the dogs, interact with the other dogs. It's just a great atmosphere for them.
All right, thanks, Mr. Fisher. Any questions? All right, we're all set. Is there anybody else to speak in favor? One more. I guess that means we have no opposition then. So we can close the public hearing a little bit sooner.
My name's Kyle Cavanero, and I live at 3 Guilford Lane, Nashua, New Hampshire.
Hi, good evening. What's on your mind?
I've been a client of Bonnie's for about 3.5 years and have known her in a capacity outside of Chewy's for about 9 years now, and I can speak to how much respect and trust her clients have for what she does. I know I personally can go and drop my dog off knowing that he is in a safe environment every time I drop him off. And knowing Bonnie as long as I have, she has truly, earned her client base through these foundational years of trust. And I highly recommend that the city move forward with her request for the fencing. And I know when I drop my goofy husky off every day, he's happy to be outside, and I know he's safe, and I know he's in a great environment. That's what I hope to have again.
All right, thanks, Mr. Cavanero.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions? All right. With that, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Thoughts on the matter? Ms. Vitale?
I think it is good location, it'll be convenient for clients with the fence around it. It ensures both the safety of the dogs and the safety of those that might come in contact that maybe are not used to being with dogs.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lionel?
This seems like a great location. We have testimony in favor of the applicant's success in taking care of the dogs, and I don't see any reason to doubt that this would be an attractive location.
All right, Mr. Boucher?
I support the application. The location, we knew what it was before. We're not in a very quiet, private type neighborhood. It's a major thoroughfare, city of Nashua. So I don't believe that noise is going to be really an issue. And I think, for a testimony, I think that one neighbor that we would all have been concerned about is probably excited about having this as a new neighbor here for them. So I'm in full support of the application as it stands.
Thank you. Ms. Boris?
I'm also in full support of the application.
Thank you. My thoughts, I got to tell you, I was very skeptical about this when I read it and went and looked at it. I was very concerned about that house next door because I thought, geez, that's gonna be a lot of noise on it, but the testimony is that property doesn't have an issue, because if it did, I tell you, I wouldn't be supportive of this. And I was thinking maybe it should be on the other side of the building in the front, but what I've heard tonight, the testimony has persuaded me that it won't, I don't think it'll be a problem to permit the fence where they're proposing it, so I'm in favor of it also. Mr. Lionel, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion. The owner is Volos Realty. The applicant is Bonnie Summers, address 217 West Hollis Street. The request is a use variance to allow an attached 20 by 50-foot fenced-in area for outdoor use as a dog daycare. This is in the LB zone. The variance is needed to enable the applicant's use of the property as a dog daycare, given the location and arrangement of the property, and there is no other reasonable way of getting this benefit. It's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. We have testimony that this will not be a problem for surrounding parcels, should not affect property values. It's not contrary to the public interest. We have testimony from multiple customers of the applicant in favor of it, and substantial justice would be served. So my motion is to grant the use variance.
Motion on the table to approve. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Boers. Any questions or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, a show of hands in favor of the motion of approval. So that's approved. Congratulations on that. Just remember, there is the 30-day window of appeal. So I would exercise caution in proceeding after, in advance of that, but you have the right to do so. And so, wish you good luck. I hope you have a good evening. And with that, I'll close the public meeting on case number 7. Moving right along, we have 2 sets of minutes. And the earliest set is November 14th. And I took a look at these myself. I didn't see any edits to it. Does anybody have any edits that they want to throw out at that? Let's see who was here. Myself, Mr. Boucher, and Mr. Lionel. We were here. So if you were okay with them, you could vote. Otherwise, the 3 of us, I'll make a motion to approve the November 14th minutes as presented. Seconded by Mr. Lionel. Show of hands in favor is Mr. Boucher, Mr. Lionel, and Mr. Courier. I did have one change. The other minutes we have are November 28th. The one suggestion I made to Mr. Falk was that on page 13 of those meeting minutes, and again, Ms. Vitale, Mr. Lionel, and myself were here, on page 13, right near the bottom but above the bold, it says, "At this point, the board took a 5-minute break." What I asked Mr. Falk to clarify was that we took a 5-minute recess, but it was also specifically so that the opposition, of which there was quite a few people, could have the ability to have a few minutes to nominate a spokesperson, which they did, and I just wanted to have that explanation.
Yeah, we already made the change, so it's already set.
So it's not in this copy, but the official copy says that it was, we took a 5-minute recess to, in part, to facilitate the opposition. And because the reason I wanted to get that out is because that's what we did, and it's also been a practice when there's been a bit of opposition, it can be a little bit awkward for them to come together. So we've allowed that to other applicants or other opposition in the past, and just thought I wanted to get that out. I didn't know if anybody had a problem with that change, or they're okay with it.
No, I think it's a good change.
Okay, was there any other changes folks had for the November 28th?
No.
So I'll make a motion to approve the November 28th, 2017 minutes with that one discussion we just had. Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Lionel, hands in favor of that is Mr. Lionel, Ms. Vitale, myself, and Ms. Boris. So those minutes are approved. We don't yet have an agenda for the January meeting, it's too far out. I think Mr. Falk said right now there's two.
I believe there's two cases. The meeting is January 9th, so we'll probably still accept applications for a little while, and then the butters get notified on December 26th, so. Once an agenda is ready, I'll
email it
email
to
it
us.
to everybody, so you have an idea of what's coming up.
So is there any other business to be brought before the board? If not, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second to the motion? By Ms. Vitale, a show of hands in favor of the motion to adjourn is unanimous, so we are adjourned at 8:39. And also, I wanted to thank Jimmy, if the microphone's still on, for recording the show.